Hello and good afternoon, everyone. So thank you again for joining our free online lesson. My name is Nabi Fikri Mishaizan and I am an application engineer from acadsystems. So for today's free online lesson, I would like to share you about the surface modeling inside of Inventors. Right, so let's take a look. So this is basically the agenda for today. So we're going to take a look on the surface modeling, and the first thing we're going to do is to create surfaces, and then we're going to edit surface, and lastly, of course, we are going to convert the surface into a solid. Right, so let me just share my Inventors. Right, so mostly when you want to create extrusion or revolve some things, you will extrude as a solid bodies, right? But there are options for you to extrude as a surfaces, so that is how you can start creating your surface. So first of all, you still need 2D sketch. So I'm going to draw a 2D sketches. Right, so let's say I'm gonna draw on XY planes. And then from here, I'm going to draw, let's say I can draw a normal line. I can also use, I can also draw spline. So let me start with creating a spline from here. Right, so I have created a spline, so we just edit it a little bit. Maybe I want also to add some straight lines. Right, so I have this line which has no close boundary, meaning it cannot be extruded as a solid. So when I finish my sketch, right, so from here, you can go to the extrude buttons. And over here, you can see automatically it will extrude as a surfaces, right? So basically you still have the same option over here. You can change the behaviors, right? You can increase the extrusion number, let's say around 25. So I can just increase a little bit some more. So the reason why it's automatic is because you only have an open sketch over here. But let's say if you have a closed sketches, let's say if I have a rectangular box over here and I were to finish my sketch, and from here I'm going to click extrude, and then you can see automatically it will extrude as a solid bodies, right? So you, of course, you don't want to have a solid, so for this case we're going to go with the surfaces. So you can find the surface button right over here, right? So you can just click the surface and you can see it will be extruded as a surface, even though it's closed boundary. So I can just press OK, and I have this box made of surfaces. Now let's say if I want to add the other one, so I can just share my sketch and I can re-extrude for this one as well. I can just select and I can extrude for this one. Right, so let me just close this one. So that is basically for the extrusion. So you have multiple things that you can do. You can use from the revolve, the loft, sweep. Right, so let me try again. In this case, I'm going to select this one over here. And for this case, I'm going to use this as a revolving tools. Let's say I'm going to create a splines. Let me just make it sharp a little bit from here. And I'm going to create a straight lines and maybe some curve, maybe some arc. But, and I want this as a revolve, I need to have a line which is for the axis line for the revolving tools. So I'm gonna hit finish my sketch. And then from here, I can select revolve. And again, I need to make sure that the surface mode is turned on. Then I can select my profiles, and I can select my axis. Then it will extrude as a surfaces. So it will be revolving as a surface. So again, you can change the value over here. Maybe I'll put it around 180, half, so you have something like this. Right, so again, you have the loft, so you have the button for the surfaces, right? So the suite as well, right? So most of this you can create by using surfaces from this particular box plot. However, if you already have a 3D solid, for example, let me just create one simple shape. Right, so let's say I have this object here, let me just extrude a little bit. And I want to create this as a solid, and later on this will be transformed into surface. Right, so let me just make some variation a bit from here. All right, so let's say I have this particular solid here. So you can see we have solid bodies, which is this one. And I'm going to convert this into a surface. So what I can do is that I can actually create a copy of this as a surface. So I can go to the modify tools over here, and I can create a copy object. And then from here, I'm going to select surface. So I just select my bodies and I can select OK. So the surfaces has been created. Right, so you can see they're not very transparent. It's because the solid body is still there. So you can see I still have my solid bodies. I can move my solid body away and you will see my surfaces has been created. Right, so I have created the surfaces. Right, let's say if I have these surfaces, which is this 2D plane over here, and if I would like to convert this into a solid, what I can do is that I have access to thickens. Right, so thickens allow you to thick these surfaces and it will convert it into solids. So if I select thickens, I can select this object and you can see I can specify the distance. Say I want to put around 3. When I press OK, it will convert it into solids. But you still have your surfaces. You can see this line over here. So I can go to the solid bodies over here. If I don't want to see this anymore, I can just simply turn the visibility off. Right. So you can see we can create solid based from the surfaces, and we can also create surfaces from the solids. So another things that you can do from here is that you can see our solid is our surfaces is actually transparent, basically translucent. You can see through this particular object. Sometimes in some areas where this would be very difficult to see. For example, if I have different backgrounds, let's say I'll change into white background so you can see your surface is very hard to see. Right. So if you want this to turn off the transparency, the translucence, or what you can do is that you can find your surfaces body from here, and then you can right click and turn off the translucence. Translucent is the transparency level. So I can turn on and you can see the objects much cleaner. Right. It's still surfaces. It doesn't have a thickness, or you can say solids, right? But you can see much more clearly from here. Right, so let me just turn back my background gradient so I can see much easier from here. Right, so the rest, if I want to, I can just click and I can turn off the translucence, and it will create this particular object, this particular view. Okay. All right, so from here I have some other few examples that I can do from here. Right. And I also already created some of these surfaces. So that is creating the surfaces. But what about editing the surfaces? Right. So from that case, you can use surface. Right. So there are multiple things that you can edit it from here. For example, trim. Now let's say if I were to turn on my trim. So let me just create some. Okay, let me just turn off this solid first. I'm going to turn on this on. All right. So right now I have these particular surfaces and I want to trim this particular surface with the other surface. So I'm going to create another splines. Here I can finish my sketch and I can extrude this to the other sides, and then you can see it is now intersecting with each others. So I'm going to use this to basically trim this one out. So I can go and select trim tools from the surface, and I can use one of these as a cutting tools. So basically mean this one, I'm going to use this one. And I can select which of the side that I want to remove. So let's say I want to remove these sides, and I can press apply, and you will see it's removing the other sides. Now let's say if I want to use this as a cutting tools, and then I want to cut the other side, so I cannot cut the other sides. The reason why, because I don't have the full connection from these surfaces. So I need to make sure that these surfaces is intersect fully up until to the top over here. Right? But for this case, I don't have that particularly. Right. By the way, you can also use trims even though your surfaces does not actually connecting. Right? Let's say if I were to create a surface from here and I were to draw something over here. And I can use this to trim, right? So I don't actually necessarily need to extrude. I can just directly use trim. I can select my cutting tools, and you can see automatically I can select which area I would like to trim, right? So you can also do something like this. So that is the trim tools, right? The opposite of trims, we have the extend tools. So for the extend tools, you can extend this particular line. For example, if I have this line over here and I want to extend, so I can just click extend, so the line becomes much longer. Right? Maybe I want to select this line. Oops, maybe I want to extend this line. Then you can see the line can be extended, and it will create something like this. Right? So there are also options that you can use from here. Maybe you want to stretch instead of extend, so you can just select right from here. Right? So let's say if this one I want to complete it, so I can just use extend just to make sure that it is now cutting through this particular lines, which later on I can use this to cut the other sides. Right? So should have come across. So let's try again to trim. Can use this again to trim. I can use the other side to remove. Now you can see we can now remove the other side of that particular surfaces. Right, so that is trim, extends. There are other similars with extend, such as rule surface. But instead of extending directly from the lines, I can actually extend across this line by using the rule surface. If I was to select this particular area, instead of extending upwards, it will create something like shape like that. Okay, so for example, if I were to select rule surface, and let's see if I were to click over here. So let me just select and turn off the automatic edge. I can select this area. Then you can see instead of it's extruding outwards, so instead of it's extending outwards, it's actually extruding the other directions, 90 degrees. But you can also specify the degrees. Maybe I want it to be around 45 degrees. So I can just enter the value over here. Right. So if I want to add some more, so I can just add some more angles from here. So you have something like this. Right, so that will be the extents. Right, so let's take a look on the other tools that you can find from here. So let me just go to my example from here. All right, so let's say if I have these enclosed surfaces, which is not quite close, but a bit open like here, and I want to close this all over there. So from that case, I can use stitches. Oh, sorry, I can use patch. And I can select patch from here. I can select the boundary area, and when I can apply, it will be closed, this particular boundary area. So you can see it's closed. Right. So if that's not very clear, so I'm going to turn off the translucence, so you can see it's much clearer from here. So let me just undo that, and I want to patch again. So I can click patch. Now you can see it is patching the areas flat. So I can also select based on the tangency condition, so it will become smooth from the original line over here. So it becomes smooth transition. Right, so you can select from tangency, or maybe I want to have smooth too, so I can just select value from here. If I don't want to, I can just select free. So the second one will be automatically select the edges. Sometimes you might find some area like this which you don't have the necessary you don't have the ability to using the automatic edge. So from this case, you can just simply select the edges one by one, and then you will see it's automatically creating the patch based on the lines that you have selected. Right? Then from here, I can just use some of these tangent condition if I want to, and it will create that surface from that particular line. Right, so that is the patch surface. Right, so maybe I want to patch this line over here. Right, so you can also patch on non surfaces such as the solid object. So I can use patch to select the lines over here, and it will create the surface from that line. So you have something like that. Right, so next one is, let's say if you want to use surfaces to make sure your solid bodies to follow the curvature of the surface. Right, so for example, if I have these solid bodies, and I want at the face over here to follow this particular shape over here. So for that case, you have this replace face. So what you can do from here is that it will replace the face of your solid into a surfaces. Just one thing to make sure is that your faces, your surfaces need to be bigger than these surfaces. So let me just show you from here. So I can just use replace face. I can select the face of my solids, and I can select the new face that it will be following in. So I can just select this one and also this one. And then I can press OK. So let me just see a little bit. Okay, so you can see it's not actually inside of this object, right? So it's being put across this particular block. So I need to make sure this surfaces is bigger than my block. So for that case, I needed to edit my block here. So just find here and make it a little bit bigger. So let me just move it a little bit. I can finish my sketch. Right, so there are still some things that cross. So let me just try first. So from here, I can use replace face. This is the face, and this is the solid that I would like to transform into. Right, so you can see it is now transformed into the surface. Right, my solid has become the same with the surface. So if I don't want to see the surface anymore, so I just need to turn off the visibility, then I have this. Look at this. Right? Doesn't necessarily need to have the face connected to the surfaces, but as long as the solid surface, the solid face is smaller than the surface that you need to replace, then you should be able to fix. Right? So for example, like this, you can just simply select the place space. This is the existing face, and this is the new face. So I need to make sure everything is connected, otherwise it won't work. Right? So I can just press OK, then you will see the faces become at the face over here. Right? So that is replacing the face. Right, so another thing that you can do from the surfaces is that you can sculpt the object. For example, if you have multiple surfaces, right, which has a closed surface. For example, I have these closed surfaces over here. As long as it's closed, you can use sculpt or patches to convert it into a solid object. So let's say I'm going to use sculpts. I'm selecting all of these, and I can select. All right, so let me just select first. So never mind. Let me just use patch first. Just select patch. Oh, sorry, not patch. The stitch. So I can just select the stitch, and I can select apply, and it will convert it. As long as there are no hole inside, you should be able to convert correctly. But the reason why it does not be able to create correctly, probably because there are some holes. So let me just fix this by making this object a little simpler. So I have this boundary patch over here. Let me just delete this too. And I'm going to make this a bit simple. So I can just patch, apply. Now it's close. And I can use stitches. Just make sure everything is selected. You can hit apply, and you will see it's converted into a solids. But you can also use this to basically stitch them together. So you can see this is different surface. This one is different surface. If you want to stitch everything together, you can still use stitch with the same methods. I'm going to select this one, and at the bottom one. And instead of apply, I will select maintain as a surface first, then I hit apply. So it's now becoming one surface. So if I take a look over here, so you can see it's highlighting everything. So it's becoming one surface. Right, and the sculpt. Right, so in the sculpt, you need to have an enclosed area also. For this case, let's say if I want to use this, and let me just draw something over here. Let's say I'm going to draw some splines. Something around here. And from here, I'm going to extrude it. So it's everything is enclosed inside, it should be able to create a solid based on multiple surfaces. So I can use sculpts, select surfaces, and let's say I'm going to create as a new solid, and I can hit apply. Then you will see it's creating based on the object that I have created before. Right. So you can also use a combination of sculpts from the surfaces and also the solids, right? So I can use sculpts, and I can select the surface from here. And from this case, I want to create a new, and I can select the solid bodies that it will be following into. So I can just press OK, and it will create a solid for these two. And then I can also use to cut through. So the previous one, I used this to basically add. So if I want to cut, I can just sculpt, and I'm going to use remove to cut. So this will be my surfaces, and this will be my solids. Now, we also have arrows over here, depending whether you want to use add or remove. So you have this particular arrow over here, which you can change the directions. This will select which area that will be removed. So let's say I'm going to select this area and I'll press OK. It's removing the rest except for this one. So let me just undo that. I can select sculpt again and I can select remove. So this will be the surface. This will be the solids. And then the directions I'm going to hit over here, which is it will be removing downwards instead. I press OK, and then you will see it's removing the inside instead of the entire side. Right, so that is a little bit on the sculpt. And lastly, let's say what you can do with multiple bunch of sculpts. Right, so you can also create the boundary insides. But before we do that, over here I have a solid body. For example, let me just go into the view here, and I can select sections. Then you will see there are solid bodies inside. Previously, I have shown you that you can use copies, and it will create a copies of surfaces. However, there are other methods that you can create this internals into a surface is by deleting the face. Right. So currently I have a solid. Oops, right. So currently I have a solids, which is the solids one over here, and I can select delete face. I can select this area face, and I can hit select OK. Then you will see it will be removing that face. And the inside will become a surface. So you can see it does not have any thicknesses. Right, I can continue to delete the face so you can see clearly. So you have something like this. So it becomes a surfaces. Right, so if I take a look over here, it should have surface highlighted. Right, this is basically solid one. It's now becoming, you can see the symbol is now becomes surface instead. Right. And lastly, with the combination of the surface tools, let's say if I wanted to create a solid base of the enclosure over here, so how you can do? So for this case, you can use multiple things such as stitch or sculpt to convert it into a solid. For this case, I'm going to use this inside first. So I'm going to copy this particular object and turn this into a surfaces. And let me just move the surface a little bit downwards. Right. So right now I have these surfaces and I can use to clean up this surface a little bit. Some of the surface I don't need, so I can just delete so I can see clearly the object that I wanted to see. So basically I have this particular area and I can use patch to basically patch everything, but make sure everything is enclosed. Oops. So I can select this area. Now everything is closed and I can use sculpt or stitch to basically sculpt into 3D. Right? So you can see right now we're actually creating the inside of this object by using surfaces. Right, so that is basically all of the things that I would like to share you about these surfaces. Right, so thank you again for joining these free online lessons. And I hope I can see you guys on the next free online lessons. And that's all for me. So thank you everyone. Have a nice day and goodbye.